Nathanael Cole's life embodies perseverance, transforming challenges into opportunities. From his early struggles to his rise as an entrepreneur and key player behind the Chicago Sky's success, his journey is filled with unspoken battles, a silent cry for those who've faced adversity. In this conversation, Nathanael shares the hidden strength behind his success and the deep purpose that drives him forward.
Thank you so much, Nathanael Cole, for joining me here on AwareNow to share this space and to share your story. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. Thank you.
So let's begin like this. Looking back, it's good to look forward, but when you look back on your upbringing and the challenges you faced without the traditional parental support, Nathanael, how did you find the strength to keep pushing forward? And what part of that journey still lives with you today in the way you lead and the way you live?
Wow, good question. Just really growing up, my grandmother, put in some prayers and teachings and some principles inside. And so today, I begin to use those principles and teachings that she had and just really being in prayer, growing up real spiritual. Our family was there. My grandma was very that. So, for being from the South that she was, all they knew was, go to work, go to church, and then go home. Those were the principles. And so I always knew, okay, I need to keep going on that. So through the challenge and the journey, I just say, what was I taught? What was the principles? What was instilled in me at an early age? And so I began to apply those.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this journey of yours. There's so many pages, so many chapters to the story of you in your journey. It's a lot. In your journey from working with Congressman Bobby Rush to helping shape the success of and contribute to the success of the Chicago Sky, was there a moment that made everything feel worth it? Something that reminded you why you fight so hard for your vision and your community?
Wow. Man, that's good. I think that both knowing that I had signed the contract with the Chicago Sky under my business name, Genesis Consultant. And then at that time, I had a former company that I started peeing in events and logistics. But that's when I knew that my work and the sleepless nights were beginning to harvest. And then working with the congressman, going from the community to not knowing that I get to work for the government. We always hear, no government, but in a good space. And being called to say, Nate, do you accept this offer? I'm like, huh? For the government? And then the same similar situation with the Sky, I was like, oh my God. And I came in right at the peak where the Sky ended up winning the championship. So that's when I knew like my tears and the silent pain that I was experiencing, like it's about to happen. Just keep pushing. It's about to happen.
And that's what we hope and we pray for, right? When you take that leap of faith and you feel like you leap again and again and again to find that win and to, just keep the faith. And there it is.
It's just to keep going and pushing. And I think that growing up from a community where you don't come off the block, you're not leaving the neighborhood. I'm from Roseland in Chicago. And so one of the second worst areas outside of Inglewood. And to know that, at that time, you trying to pass, 15, right? Like, am I going to pass 15 years old? And, and to be like, wow. And then to realize you're getting called from so many different spaces at an area is like life-changing, so that was very encouraging. So I was like, yeah, that's when I knew it was happening.
Well, let's pause here for a moment and speak about where you grew up and where you came from. And so you've endured a lot of loss. When we speak specifically about gun violence, we talk about Chicago, we talk about let's talk about you there. Can you just share like what kind of loss you've experienced in your life where you grew up?
Wow. I mean, I remember, just growing up as a child, I'm from Roseland, 103rd and Normal, south side of Chicago, and very, rural, but yet urban and very high drug environment, very gangs. And so trying to, go to school, and go around the community was very challenging. But also I can remember losing some friends to gun violence, as a child. So as a young teen, right? So let alone the childhood life, now you're getting teen traumatized. Now you're dealing with trauma as a youth, having some individuals who committed suicide. That's a lot. So you're now going into a classroom or you're going to a work program. I started working very young and not seeing those individuals in room, not because they overslept, but they were murdered, or they, were on drugs, or they were beaten by, talk about police brutality. We've been doing that. So it was really challenging to lose some young people, some of my friends, to gun violence and to gang activity at an early age. And then growing up where even through my family, back in the 60s and at that time, and then as we know, drugs was then, right? The same thing kind of repeat. So now, having this behavior go through the genes of our family, alcoholism. And so just seeing things that a child shouldn't see, talk about that in my book where, as adults, we say things or we do things around children or say things to, or more so at, and we think, that they won't understand. But no, they got a brain, they got ears, they got eyes. We teach them, right? Nose, eyes, ear, touch.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're growing up and you saw this, and now you either think that this is what you're supposed to have, or this energy begins to come towards you, and now you're just traumatized. And so your belief system is attacked. And that happened for me, where all the thing I do is just hope and pray one day I'll come out of this darkness. I'll come out of the community, not necessarily for me, but for those like me. I want to make it so people can say, wait a minute, if he made it and we're all from this same community, then I can well. So being that beacon of light.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I imagine like going through those sorts of traumas and the degree to which the loss that you suffered, that relationships meant so much, those that you could hold on to and hang on to. Speaking of relationships, you and I, as we had just talked before we hopped on here, man, it's been about 10 years since Hollywood Film Festival days. And right? So it's that just speaks to your character and your ability to maintain and retain these relationships over the span of time. Let's talk about you as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you've undoubtedly faced moments of doubt, moments of struggle. Can you share a time when every single thing felt uncertain, and how you found the inner strength to keep going when giving up seemed easier?
I think what happened for me when I received within the past 5 or 6 years, receiving multiple phone calls that today was my last day on every level, from employment to consulting to contracts. I mean, all at the same time. It was call after call after call. And I was just like, this is not real. That's when things were really darkened for me. The pain just was stronger. I was already like, okay, finally it's going away. And it just kind of burst. And I'm just, okay, wait a minute. This is not happening to me. And it was really, really challenging. I lost cars. I lost apartment. I lost a lot of money, and things began to fall apart. It just fell into shambles. But then I began to reflect back to the worst period of my life is when I was a child, 4 or 5 years old. And I talk about this in my book, where I was just like, and I was removing, we had to move from Chicago, and I didn't want to leave, and I was just traumatized. And I remember going back to the prayers and teachings. Mm-hmm. I remember like, wait a minute. There were people that were praying for me. There were people that was like, Nate, you can make it. And just having those quiet moments as a youth where you just looking at the wall. And I'm like, I'm gonna make it. And so going back to that moment and like, okay, I made it from there. Sure enough, I can make it from here because I've seen this picture before. And so that's when I was like, okay, nothing. And the only thing that was left in me was God. That's all because everything was gone. Everything that you can imagine left. The pain increased, the drama increased, but the hope and the joy and all these things begin to leave. And not that I found joy and peace in those stuff, but things were just beginning to arise. And then there was a hit. Mm-hmm. But I said, I need to reflect back. And I just was like, let's go back. What was, again, back to those principles, back to those and that brought me up, that was able to sustain me through those struggles, because they were real.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting how sometimes to go forward, to move forward, we have to go back to the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Those beginning principles. Yeah.
You got to go back to the Genesis. And going to the Genesis, which hence is my business is called Genesis, because everything is in the beginning and the foundation starts there. So whatever you do in the Genesis, it will come up later on. So if we start right, we'll end right. If we end right, we'll start right, because to every end, there's a start. So even in that moment, I'm like, well, I kind of seen this before, maybe not as strong. And I came out of it. Okay, here comes a new Genesis. And that's what I had to grab on, because I didn't have nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. So you carry an incredible load of responsibilities, and yet you seem to remain so grounded. How do you maintain a sense of peace and purpose in the mindset of everything pulling at you? And where do you go mentally, emotionally to refuel when you feel drained?
This is great. Wow. What's crazy is that I tend to break and go to the movie theaters. I love the movies. That is my quiet place, my secret place. Going to the theaters. I like comedy. I like a good romantic, long 2-hour movies. If the movie ain't 2 hours, I really don't want to go. I like sitting in the theater and just be in that space, and it takes me away and doing therapeutic things. I love to skate. Skating, and what's crazy, another, I guess, secret that created me to have 28 cavities at one point. Oh. I love cherry twizzlers. You got some cherry twizzlers? Listen there, you find some twizzlers, like, okay, he's coming out of something, but I enjoy those. And so that keeps me calm, and having conversations with some people in my life that I can just share. And I believe in therapy and having that conversations to keep me well, because when you're being you're pouring into people, you're being called, there's levels of expectation, there's, can you do this, can you do that, I don't know, my brother, my sister, my cousin, I mean, the city, the world, other cities, call Nate, and you're drained, and you still gotta get it up and go. You can't not do it. You cannot not go, right? And so I said, you know what? I need to take a minute, right? I need to go to the movies, or I need to say, you know what? I need to go get a manicure. And that helps me. In that 5 minutes or in that hour, I'm revived to make it again. Because, however, I need help as well.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love that you are mindful that I just need to take this pause. I need to take this pause. I need to take this break. And I love the Twizzlers reference and finding, but that's it though, right? It's like your Twizzlers, my York peppermint patty, or whatever it is. It's finding, it's finding those simple pleasures, something small and simple that's attainable, right? And then you can go and you can get and you can give, but to have those moments and those simple pleasures where we can just be.
Yeah, I think it's in those simple things, and I think what it does, I think for me to even know that about myself, you got to learn yourself. You got to know yourself, and most people don't know themselves. And I just thank God. And if it wasn't for God and the church and who God is in my life, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
Nathanael, you have a book. Let's talk about this book, The Silent Cry. What does it mean? What's it about? Fill us in.
So Silent Cry is a book basically about, it's a memoir about my life, but Silent Cry is a tone that is demonstrated through one's behavior. It could be misunderstood and not even really seen or heard by others. However, this tone can be seen and clearly by those who have similar experience, silent but loud. And so in the book, I talk about the behaviors of young people and the behaviors of people generally. And so for an example, I remember growing up, and myself, of course, and my friends and others, were disciplined very well. I mean, not well, but harsh, and just, go over here, go in a corner. One experience that I think was just horrible, and it's in my book. I remember being in about 6th grade, and my teacher, when I started her class, she put my desk, and this is kind of traumatizing, but she put my desk and she put everything in the closet. And so where we put our book bags, where we put our coats, and mind you, we were kids. And I went to a very financially challenged school, elementary school. So we didn't have the best. It wasn't clean. It wasn't how it should be. So imagine I'm in this closet with book bags and coats and dust and ants. This is real. And that's where I had to spend my time during class session. At the time, it was an hour, whatever the subject was. And that's where I had to spend my time. So I'm just like, what? This is where, and then when everyone else would come out for reading time, I couldn't come out to the group and read. I had to read my book in the closet. I had to write in my journal by myself. I mean, that did something. So I'm crying. And now the silent cry began to develop even more. So now my behavior, I'm loud, I'm all over the place. I'm just what's wrong with this kid? But no one never really asked me, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? No one never really asked me that, but suspensions and detention and your grandma need to come get you. It was just Bill. And now I'm reacting because no one is hearing me. So now I'm being, okay, you're going to hear me. Now I'm being disrespectful. Now I'm out of order. It's like something, now I'm being arrested. This kid is out of control, but it's all because of what was instilled. But no one never asked me, Allie, how are you? Are you okay? Did you eat today? Because I haven't eaten, from home. So this silent kind of development. So that's what the meaning. And so now I created this book as a memoir, but as a tool system to say, hey, to staff, to churches, to educators, just stop and say, are you okay? How can I help? Before the workday starts, before we start teaching, before we start church, whatever the synagogue, whatever belief, are you okay? Mm-hmm. If we do that, we'll see a lot of changes in the world, and people will begin to heal, such as I did, and still on good healing, because now that, here it goes, silent cry is no longer silent. That onion effect, it begins to unfold. And what I mean by the onion is, to all of the cook, the onion has layers. We have so many built up layers of trauma and disease. Until we start unfolding those layers and get to the core, when you got to the core, when you get real teary-eyed, now we done got to the foundation. Now you can heal. We got to the foundation of that. And so my message is pushing the onion and let's open up some things so we can heal. But that's what I experienced. And God put it on my heart. I'm like, let's release this, because we're not having real conversations. And I see if we do that, we'll see gun violence, and we'll see our violence across the nation begin to dissolve.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing so deeply, and for refusing to stay silent any longer.
Yeah, I am free.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this space, for sharing your story. Nathanael Cole, thank you for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.